walking around feeling free, thinking about what's happened to me from July up till now. Don't know where, don't know how.
Hey guys, welcome back to day 2 of Bookmas, and in this video we're going to be going over and talking through my November books and what I thought about them, the ones that I was able to read, the ones I was not able to read, and just give you my thoughts on all of my books. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to get the not read books out of the way. The first book that I have is Foxglove. I wanted to read this because it was a little romantasy type thing, and I was excited to read it, but I just didn't get to it. So this will go back on my bookshelf for maybe December. Maybe. Then the other book that I did not finish, and actually didn't even start, is Spell Shop. I really wasn't in the mood for cozy fantasies, and while this had really cute sprayed edges and it seemed something really interesting to read, I just wasn't in the mood for a cozy fantasy, so I just really didn't feel like picking it up. And with that same theme, upside down again, Can't Spell Treason Without T, another cozy fantasy, same type of thing. Didn't want to read it because I really wasn't in the mood for a cozy fantasy, so this is going to go back on my bookshelf. And then the last book that I wanted to read in November, did not get to, was Ruthless Vows. I will say, I did pick this up and start reading it at the very, very, very end of November. I actually have it on Kindle, and let's see what percent I'm at. I am at 2% of this book. So I have read, how many pages does my Kindle say? 7 pages. This will be read in December.
Something's wrong with Bookmas.
Shoot. I don't know where I was. I had to make an emergency stop of my recording because my dog threw up. Gotta love that. But I know I was talking about Ruthless Vows. Basically, gonna read it in December. I had every intention of trying to read it in 2024, and this is literally the last month. So, didn't read it in November, but we'll be reading it in December. Back again for interruption number 2. Okay, so now let's talk about the books that I did read in November and what my thoughts are. The first book that I read in November was Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is book 2 of the Rose Hill Ranch series. This was such a good time. This was a 5-star book. This was a story about Skylar and Wes. And Wes is the brother from the first book. So this is an interconnected standalone with Wild Love. This is the brothers' story. The banter between Wes and Skylar was amazing. And I absolutely loved Cherry, which is Skylar's pet, like, parrot who curses at people, and it's so funny. It was such a good time. Then the next book that I read was The Games Gods Play by Abigail Owen. This is book 1 of, I don't know how many books are going to be in this series. I rated this 4.5. So this was a story about the gods. Every 100 years, they have a contest to see which god is going to rule over the world for the next 100 years. And instead of them, the gods, doing the competition amongst themselves, they each get basically a tribute. Like, they pick somebody, some human, to fight on their behalf. Typically, Hades does not play because he's essentially god of the underworld, and so he normally does not play. Well, this competition, he does. He very unexpectedly decides to join this contest. This follows Hades and, what's her name? Lyra. This was so good. This had kind of like Hunger Games type vibe to it. And then you also had a little bit of a romance between Lyra and Hades. And the ending definitely, I cannot wait for the next book to come out to see what's going to happen. The next book I read was A Fate Inked in Blood. This book I had bought a while ago because it has beautiful sprayed edges. It always drew my eye every time I saw it in the bookstore. And so I decided to finally pick it up and decided to read it in the month of November. This book I ended up giving a 3.5. The problem was, so it's not really a problem, honestly. It was, I have never read like Norse mythology or any of that. And so at the very beginning, I was kind of struggling. I did eventually get this on audio, and it made it much, much, much more enjoyable because the narrator is actually Norwegian. She's from the country that this book is supposed to be in. I don't know. I'm not good with geography. And so she knew all the words. I was able to follow along and actually know how some of these words were supposed to be said. And it made it much more enjoyable because I felt like I was stumbling more on the words and it took me out of the story. Whereas once she started to read it, it put me right back in the story and I enjoyed it a lot better. So this was a 3.5. There were some things that happened that I kind of predicted, but then there was also some things at the very end that I did not predict. And I am really excited to see what's going to happen next. I believe this is a duology, which I absolutely love. I love duologies. And so I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I didn't even tell you the characters' names. So this is Bjorn, Bjorn, and Freya. It's actually Freya. For the longest time, every time I saw it, I said Feyre in my head. And I just couldn't, I think that also messed me up because I was thinking Feyre from ACOTAR. Took me out of the story when I should have been focusing on Bjorn and Freya, not Feyre. 3.5. Can't wait to see what the next book is going to be and see how this whole story wraps up. Then the next book I read was Bookshops and Bone Dust. This week, when I picked this up, I was really in the mood for a cozy fantasy, and I felt like I was going to read this, and then I was going to read Spell Shop, and then I was going to read Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, and it was just going to be a cozy fantasy week for me. And I read this book, and it was like a one and done. I didn't want to read another cozy fantasy after this. So this is the prequel to Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, which I really did like Legends and Lattes. But this follows Viv, and this was a story about her getting injured because she's an orc. She got injured during a fight, and her crew left her in this town to heal, left her at this inn essentially, and was like, we'll come and pick you up once we get done with our mission that we're on, and if you're healed then you can come with us type thing. So she is at this town trying to heal her leg from the injury that she sustained. And while she's there, she meets a bunch of little people. She meets a really cute bookshop owner at a struggling bookshop. He has an owl dog. It's this little guy here. So cute. And it's just a little cozy thing. You get to kind of have a little bit of a mystery of what's going on, but it's very low stakes. It's just a chill time. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It wasn't amazing. It did its job of being a cozy fantasy, but this was really cute. It did follow Viv, and you had Viv, Satchel, which he was kind of cute as well. And then you had Fern. Fern is the bookshop owner, this little mouse, and it was kind of weird because Fern cussed a lot. It was weird. It threw me for a loop when it first happened, but it was a cute time. So 3 stars. I'm glad I finally was able to read it, and I really did enjoy seeing where Viv came from. Then the next book that we read, I don't have on here because I read it on Kindle, and I needed something really cute, really up my speed after reading Bookshops and Bone Dust, and that was The Right Move by Liz Tom Ford. This is book 2 of the Windy City series. This one was, what did I rate this? I gave this 4.75. So this followed Indy and Ryan, and Ryan is a basketball player, a super, 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 super famous basketball player. And he is the brother of the FMCs from Mile High. So that's how they're interconnected. And then Indy is actually like the best friend of that FMC from the first book. So you have two characters who were tied to that first book's FMC. It was so cute. Ryan is probably one of my top 10 book boyfriends now. Then the next book I read after The Right Move was, put these down, Betting on You by Lynn Painter. This is a cute little young adult romance. This is closed door, so this is perfect for those people who have like younger teens or younger people who don't really want all of the spice in romance. This is where it's at. So I ended up giving Betting on You 4 stars. This followed Bailey and Charlie. They have another kind of meet cute. So essentially Bailey is like 14 or 15 at the time, is about to get on an airplane because her parents were getting separated. She was having to do the whole split, one parent lives in one state, the other parent lives in the other. She's very upset because this is a very new thing. And while she's in line to get her tickets for her plane, there is a guy ahead of her who's basically making out with his girlfriend, and they're not paying attention. So they don't move ahead when the line is ready to go. She kind of is annoyed by it, and she calls him Mr. Nothing. I think that's what she calls him, Mr. Nothing. So she's kind of tells him to go ahead in the line. He's kind of, annoyed by it, and he ends up being the same person on her flight sitting right next to her. And so he kind of picks on her a little bit, kind of joking around. She's very serious. He's the kind of free-spirited type person. And so that's their little meet cute. And then lo and behold, years later, they end up being co-workers. And they kind of are an enemy, not really enemies. They're dislike to lovers. They also have fake dating. It's such a good time. It is so cute. Really enjoyed it. This was 4 stars. I knew I was going to like it. I really like all of Lynn Painter's books, and this was no exception. It did have some funny parts. I giggled on some parts, but it was so good. Charlie was such a cute MMC. Then I ended up reading Throttled. This is book 1 of the Dirty Air series. This is all F1 racing. I have never read an F1 racing book ever. I know nothing about F1 racing. But this is the book 1 of Dirty Air series. This book I ended up giving 4 stars as well. This one followed, what's his name? Maya and Noah. And Noah is the really popular, hotshot. He's basically, they call him the Prince of F1 or something like that. His dad was a really legendary F1 racer. He's following in his footsteps, and he's the one that wins all these championships and all this kind of stuff. And Maya is actually the sister of another F1 racer who at the very, very, very beginning of this book, the brother ends up crashing into Noah during a race and took him out of a competition. And so there was very much a dislike between Noah and Maya's brother. And then 2 years later, it ends up that the brother is on the same team as Noah, and Maya ends up tagging along on all her brother's races, and she kind of is always there, and Noah notices her, and yeah, romance ensues. And then the last thing that I read, it's not really a book, it was a little graphic novel, and this is Stray Dogs. I ended up getting it signed, and this is a story about a bunch of dogs who live in a house, and these dogs have basically short-term memory issues. So they have no idea why they're there. Basically, it would be like Dory in Finding Nemo, where it was like, they'll be like, let's go and do this. And then they start to walk and then they completely forget what they were doing. And they're like, what? Why are you here? Type situation. All these dogs are living in this house. And one of the dogs, the most recent dog to arrive at this house, ends up smelling a scarf and remembers the scarf belonged to the previous owner, and the person who owns the house that the dogs actually live in right now is a murderer and killed the dog's owner and ended up bringing the dog to his house. And that was where all the dogs came from. And so this dog, who does actually remember what happened, is telling the other dogs, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. And nobody remembers, nobody believes it. And so it's a little story about that. So it was really, really, really cute. I did enjoy it. There was a little sad spot at the end, but it was a nice little read. I am glad I was able to read it. It has a little blurb on the front that says, what do you get when you crossbreed Silence of the Lambs with All Dogs Go to Heaven? Well, you get stray dogs. So if you have not read it, definitely take a look at it. It was really good. And with that, that is the end of this video. I got interrupted so many times. It's going to be a mess for me to edit this video. So hopefully I stay focused and this makes sense. But if not, what can you do? I'm married and I have 2 kids and 2 dogs and things happen. So I attempted. But with that, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, please make sure you do so. I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see everybody in my next video. Bye.